Hi there. Students, Mendel, after performing monohybrid and dihybrid cross, needed to confirm if the results obtained by him are authentic. In order to do that, Mendel performed the back cross, test cross and reciprocal cross. So we move on to back cross. A cross that involves F1 individual with either of the parent. F1 containing the genotype, a dominant allele and a recessive allele for height is crossed to begin with homozygous tall containing both dominant allele T. The F1 individual produces two types of gametes, 50% of them containing T and the other 50% containing small t. Whereas a homozygous tall produces all gametes contain the allele T or the dominant allele. And they produce the product, and the product that was obtained were all tall plants, of which 50% were homozygous tall and the other 50% were heterozygous tall. In this back cross, Mendel did not get any orientation, hence he called it as outcross. He further continued with F1 individual crossed with homozygous recessive individual. As in the previous case, F1 individual produced two types of gametes, whereas recessive dwarf produced all gametes producing similar type. And this was a possible combination that they produced, wherein 50% of the individuals were tall plants containing T and small t, that is hybrid tall, and the other 50% were dwarf plants. Thus, in this cross, he obtained a ratio between dominant and recessive, that is tall and dwarf, a ratio of 1:1. This helped him to understand that F1 individuals were heterozygous, containing one dominant allele and one recessive allele. Thus, he called it as test cross. To perform the same thing with reference to dihybrid, so dihybrid F1 individual produces four types of gametes, which is crossed with homozygous recessive containing small y, small r, which produces all gametes containing small y and small r. And they produce four individuals, yellow round 1, yellow wrinkled 1, green round 1 and green wrinkled 1. Thus here we get a ratio of 1:1:1:1 in her dihybrid cross. So this cross, that is a test cross, enabled Mendel to understand that the F1 individuals are heterozygous in nature. Thus students, a test cross helps us to know the genotype of an unknown individual. Of having understood that, let's move on to understand what is reciprocal cross. Here let's consider the example. If in experiment 1 I consider tall plant, that is homozygous tall containing both dominant allele as female, it's crossed with the dwarf, that is homozygous dwarf with both recessive alleles as male. Then in the second experiment, that is experiment 2, the homozygous tall containing both dominant allele is considered as male and the homozygous recessive dwarf containing two recessive alleles small t is considered as female. Such a set of two experiments is called reciprocal cross. Inheritance of characters controlled by nucleus are not affected by reciprocal cross. However, if the characters are inherited through cytoplasm, then they are affected by reciprocal cross. With that, let's move on to solve some of the problems. How many different types of gametes can an organism of genotype capital A small a, capital B and capital C small c produce? So it can produce 4. How is that? Let's consider this way. The gene B is in only one form, so we cannot consider it into the formula. However, the gene A is in two forms, dominant A, that is capital A, as well as recessive A small a, as well as the same in the case of C. It is present in two forms. So we consider as 2 to the power of 2, that makes it 4. We move on to the next one. Heterozygous tall plant was crossed with dwarf plant. What will be the percentage of dwarf plants in the progeny? Heterozygous tall plant, that's an F1, crossed with the dwarf plant, that is an homozygous recessive. This is nothing but a test cross. However, let's see the answer. What will be the percentage dwarf plants in the progeny? That would be 50%. Let's see how. F1 individual contain heterozygous, that is dominant T as well as recessive T, and the recessive dwarf contains similar alleles. So this is a test cross giving you 50% tall as well as 50% dwarf plants. So in this module, students, we have studied regarding the test cross. Next we move on to heterozygous, this one here, so we get the answer as 50%. So in this module, students, we have studied regarding the back cross, the test cross as well as the reciprocal cross. We'll get back to you